Good afternoon, everyone, or morning for our West Coast folks. I'm so excited to welcome you all to our webinar Wednesday today. My name is Lauren Schweppe. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am our Educational Initiatives Manager at NGLCC. I'm so excited to welcome you all today. A quick reminder, please, if you can, hover over your name, click those three dots in the top right corner, and rename yourself to add your pronouns in. As we aspire to make all of our virtual environments as inclusive as possible. So we are so excited today to have certified LGBTBE Brian Gorman from transforminglives.coach back for his second webinar Wednesday. Brian has been an LGBT+ rights activist, Native American rights activist, and AIDS activist. Brian shares his deep understanding of successfully achieving and sustaining change through writing, speaking, coaching, consulting, and training. Brian is a TEDx speaker, International Coach Federation certified professional coach, a member of ICF New York City, a member of Forbes Coaches Council, and board member of the Gay Coaches Alliance. He has also written for NGLCC New York, as well as multiple articles for Forbes Coaches Council. I have had the pleasure of getting to know Brian through our Accelerate program, where he was one of our speakers, as well as our Sip and Pitch program, where he has both presented and been a valuable contributor during our community and conversation hour. So we are so excited to have you back, Brian, for this, again, your second webinar Wednesday. And without further ado, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm Brian Gorman, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And we're just going to jump right into today's presentation, which is on It Takes a Coalition. This presentation actually came to mind for me when I was participating in Community and Conversation. I believe it was in March, and we had breakout rooms on, we were addressing the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it brought to mind for me the 2014 New York City Pride logo, which said, "We have won when we're one." And I remember that Pride, along with many others, because this logo really stuck with me. And it made me think back to 1981, when I first came out. Soon after that, I joined the board of a publication in Minneapolis called Equal Time. And Equal Time addressed lesbian and gay issues. We had a lesbian editor, and many gay men would not pick us up because of that. Then came AIDS. And who stepped in when healthcare workers and family members didn't? It was the lesbian community. And so we came together in that way. ACT UP. When you think about ACT UP, if you know the history of ACT UP, when I was at the AIDS Resource Center in the early 1990s, I would picket with ACT UP. I would pass out condoms at high schools with ACT UP. And friends of mine would provoke the police to arrest them. Other friends of mine would act as peace marshals, ensuring that there wasn't any violence. So the coalitions kept building. So all of this leads me to today. And today in this webinar, we're going to begin by looking at trust. Trust is the foundation of coalition building. Trust is the foundation of building any strong relationship. So we're going to share a model of trust, of how to build trust. And then I'm going to give you the key question to ask when you're attempting to build trust with others. We're going to do a breakout. Where do you need to do your work in order for others to trust you more? We're going to come back, report out, and then we're going to look at other aspects of building coalitions, specifically diversity, co-creation, and the power of the 3%, which has nothing to do with the 1%ers. We're going to do another breakout on where do you need to strengthen your coalition building, and report out and wrap it up. I was very fortunate several years ago to take an online course on conversational intelligence with a woman named Judith E. Glasser. Judith has passed away, but she spent much of her career studying the neuroscience of conversation and how people respond to conversation. She presented us this model of trust. It's actually one of the 10 topics that I talk about in my video series on the 10 most important things I've learned about change over the last 50 years. TRUST is also the only acronym I allow in my vocabulary. So the first T is about transparency. We fill in the blanks. And despite what we tell others, we actually are, every one of us, very good storytellers. We believe the stories we tell ourselves. So transparency helps on focusing on quelling threats by sharing information. If I don't know, I make it up. You make it up if you don't know. Transparency helps break through that. Part of transparency isn't just sharing you with others, it's sharing what you need from them with others. Doing this helps keep people in the loop, and the outcome is that we're ensuring that others know what we know. R is about relationship. It's important that you know what's important to others. It's important that others know what's important to you. Building relationship at that level means stepping into other people's shoes, seeing the world through their eyes. As Lauren mentioned, I'm on the board of directors of the Gay Coaches Alliance. And like so many other organizations, we really are wrestling with how we change in response to Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, and the whole diversity, equity, inclusion shift. And so each of us was assigned to do some work and come back to the board. And I was fortunate enough to be assigned to watch Emmanuel Acho's YouTube videos on difficult conversations with a Black man. As much as I have been involved with people of color, with different bodies of people, different cultures, Emmanuel helped me see the world through a Black man's eyes in a way that I never have before, because he dealt with the difficult topics. Step into the other's shoes in order to build relationships. Have open dialogues about what's important to others. Listen to Emmanuel when he talks, for example, about what it's like, what goes through his mind when he's about to step onto an elevator and the only other person on that elevator is a Caucasian woman. Have open dialogues about what's important to others. This helps us get in sync with one another. Understanding. What is the context for the understanding? I understand my experience as a gay man. I understand my experience as a male. I understand my experience as a Caucasian. I understand my experience growing up in a middle-class family. None of that helps me understand your experience. None of that ensures that I really know what it's like to be walking in your shoes. Listen actively so that you actually hear others. Listen for what you're not hearing. Ask the tough questions and be open to answering the tough questions. Use others' insights to gain understanding for yourself. And now we're beginning to see and validate each other's perspectives. All of this in working to build trust so that we can build a coalition. S, shared success. What is important to others? What you really need to make sure here is that you're not just using the same words, but that they have the same meaning. What does equity mean to you? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to Lauren or Sabrina or Kara or anyone else? Determine what's important to others. Understand what success looks like in another's mind. Again, you're getting into that depth of understanding that becomes the foundation for trust. This helps us to align perspectives and provides us to develop a co-created view of where we're going. So now we know where we're going, and it's not going to be easy. So the last T is truth-telling. And again, this is the difficult truths. This is not telling the easy truths. You need both candor and caring when you're telling those difficult truths. And I sincerely invite you to watch Emmanuel's videos. He sits there and has a conversation with the police about being a black man and his experience of the police. And then he sits there and has a conversation with Joanna and Chip Gaines from HGTV and their 5 kids. And he still has difficult conversations. He has difficult conversations with each of his guests. But he tells them the hard truths with caring and candor. Provide insights to narrow misunderstandings. Let others know where they stand, again, with candor and caring. And the outcome of all of this is that you're narrowing your reality gaps. So before we go any further, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that anyone has on the model for building trust. Just feel free to come off your mute and ask your question. Kara. Okay, Kara, YouTube, and just do a search for difficult conversations with a black man.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? I was in a breakout the other day, and actually, I think it was NGLCC's Community and Conversation last Friday, and they asked the subject for the breakout was, what are you binge watching? And some people were binge watching different movies or TV shows, and I'm binge watching uncomfortable conversations right now. So what is the key question to ask others when you're building trust with them? What do I need to do? What do I need to do in order to be more trusted by you? Not why don't you trust me, or how can I get you to trust me more, or anything else? What do I need to do in order to be more trusted by you? One of my clients is the executive director of an international nonprofit of about 150 employees. And she wanted to build trust amongst her senior team. And they had a pretty good level of trust. She wanted to strengthen it. And so what they did is we shared the model first, and then they had a series of breakout rooms, and they rotated through each of the breakout rooms so that each senior team member had the opportunity to ask each other senior team member that question. What do I need to do in order to be more trusted by you? And from there, they moved into working through exactly that. So I'll go back to the deck for just 1 second. That is the key question. What do I need to do in order to be more trusted by you? We are going to go into breakout rooms for 10 minutes. Your question in the breakout rooms is in what areas of trust, and if you didn't write them down, I will make sure that they get broadcast into the breakout rooms. In what areas of trust, transparency, relationship, understanding, shared success, and truth-telling do you need to work in order for others to trust you more? So this is really asking you to reflect on your transparency, your ability to walk in the shoes of others, your understanding through active listening, deep listening, your establishment of shared success with others, and your ability with candor and caring to tell the tough truths. So we'll be back in 10 minutes and report out, and then we'll move on into coalition building. So what came up for people in the breakout rooms? Just again, feel free to unmute yourselves and shout it out.
One of the things that we talked about is just showing people, making sure that you're showing them you're available to listen, because everybody has their own level of privacy. But a lot of times you can make a big enough impact by just showing that you're available and to listen, and let people determine what level of approach they want to take with you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kara. What else came up for people? Nothing?
We've got a shy group today.
I see some Team NGLCCers on the line. So Jada, Maxine, Sydney, Alicia, anything here that y'all can contribute?
I'll quickly add something. Lindsay and I spoke about we spoke about all of them. TRUSNT. We basically, we kind of put truth-telling and transparency together for one of them. Just, I think this is a common theme as well, but whenever you are feeling overwhelmed and you can't really fully fulfill some sort of project or whatever it may be, for lack of a better term, sometimes you come off as being shady almost. Like, what are they doing? What are they doing with their time? When in reality, you're just overwhelmed. So that transparency and that truth telling to always come out to your fellow colleagues to say, I need help with this, or can you explain this to me? I think that's very important. And then that makes you also seem more trustworthy within yourself as well.
Great. Thank you, Maxine. Good add.
I can jump in here. This is Sydney Harris. Bargov and I were discussing, somewhat similar, so I'll kind of echo some of Maxine's points, but we were also talking about truth-telling and transparency and, really discussing that everyone has their own areas that they need to work on, and just kind of recognizing that as well, when we're working on our own relationships with different people, and just kind of giving each other that patience, I guess.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and typically, if we really need to work on one area in our relationship with one person, it's probably true that we need to work on that same area in our relationship with others as well. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Back to the screen. Coalition building. Again, we've talked about trust. We're going to spend a little bit of time on diversity, on co-creation, and on the power of the 3%. Many years ago, I was reading a book on leadership, and it was using various science facts, if you will, as metaphors for important elements of leading an organization. And the one that has stuck with me for at least 2 decades now was the story about cellular biology. And the author explained that palm trees have very simple cellular structures that allows them to grow very fast. Oak trees have very complex and diverse cellular structures. They grow very slowly. And during times of turbulence, oak trees are a whole lot stronger and more likely to survive than the palm trees. And to me, that really, as a metaphor, talks about why diversity is important. Now, typically when we talk about diversity, we think about racial diversity, we think about ethnic diversity. As members of the LGBTQ plus community, we tend to think about sexual identity, sexual orientation, gender, all of those things. Most of our heterosexual counterparts don't. But there's a whole other side of diversity that most of the time doesn't get paid attention to. A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed NGLCC member Steve Yacobelli for an article that I was writing for the New York City chapter of NGLCC. And you may know Steve. He is the founder and owner of Top Dog Learning Group. He bills himself as, quote, the gay leadership dude. And when Steve was talking about how he came to write the book, and I'll give you the name of the book in a minute, but he recently published a book on leadership. And he said, I was going to write another one of the thousands of leadership books that are out there. And then Steve being Steve, he said, the little Carrie Bradshaw in me spoke up and said, I couldn't help but wonder whether there is anything in our collective queer experience that has us look at leadership in a different way or have different opportunities than our straight counterparts. And so he began to research that, and he came up with 6 critical leadership competencies that are uniquely strong in the LGBTQ plus community as compared to other populations. Authenticity. Coming out is an act of authenticity, and we come out over and over and over again. And it takes courage to do that. He also identified communication, relationships, empathy, and our ability to shape culture. And Steve identifies these as characteristics or competencies that make an LGBTQ plus leader different than their most of their heterosexual counterparts. And his book is Pride Leadership, Strategies for the LGBTQ plus Leader to be King or Queen of Their Jungle. As a sidebar, if you will, this is the first book that I have bought as an audiobook. And if you ever want to buy an audiobook, this is the one. Steve narrates it. And so it's not just the book, but it really is Steve. And as he's quoted in the article that I wrote, he wrote it in the only quiet place in his house. Ironically, he wrote it in the closet. But what does this tell us? This tells us we also need to pay attention to diversity of experience. We also need to pay attention to having diverse perspectives. One of the things when I was doing a lot of change management consulting in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, I wanted to know of the organizations I was working with, did the leader surround herself or himself with people who told them what they needed to hear or what they wanted to hear. Strong coalitions make sure, again, that truth-telling, that you have diversity of perspective. So you hear what you need to hear, and diversity of thought. Going back again, and this is another model from Judith Glaser. You can see the trust in there. High trust allows co-creation. Low trust causes resistance. The vital instincts that she talks about that have an impact on building trust is fairness. In this relationship, are we being fair with one another? If you've ever worked for a manager or a boss who proudly presented your work as their own, your ideas as their own, your innovations as their own, you know that ownership has a positive or negative impact on building trust and co-creation. Reciprocity is everybody giving their fair share. Cooperation, expression, and status. When I am working with groups of leaders, I don't want them around a conference room table, because that sets a status up. I want everybody to be equal in that room. Another important part of this is, even if you are fully in this coalition, to be of service, being able to be of service serves you. It's something that you're passionate about. And so one of the questions to ask, as whether you're hiring an employee, whether you're forming a coalition, what is in it for you? Because if I can align what you're seeking with what I'm seeking, with what this coalition is seeking, we're going to have a much stronger working relationship. And finally, the 3%. There's a field of work, if you will, called organizational network analysis. And over and over and over again, it doesn't matter the organization, it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter anything. 3% of the individuals in whatever that body is influence 90% of the people. And so as you're thinking of building that coalition, as you're thinking of driving a change through your organization, as you're thinking of any of those things, know who the influencers are. Because if they're with you, 90% of the organization is going to be with you. And if they're against you, you're not going to go very far. Just going to show you a couple of models of this. Don't worry about all the language and so forth. But when they run this as a computer program, they collect up information on who influences you and how strong their influence is and so forth, and generate these maps. This is a map of one organization of about 100 people, where the most influential person, that red circle right in the center that everybody is connected to, the most influential person in that organization, not the CEO, not the chief human resource officer or the program managers. Adam was an accounting clerk. So we're going to go into breakouts in just a moment, one more time. But before we do, any questions on diversity, on co-creation or on 3%? Okay, so we're going to put you back in the same breakouts, and we'll broadcast the question in there. But basically, it's what do you need to do to strengthen your own ability to build coalitions? So again, feel free to just unmute yourself and tell me what came out for you in this breakout group.
All right, well, I want to start first before I forget. So my name is Alicia Green and I'm she, hers. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm the Director of Supplier Diversity. And I was happy to be in the group with the very own Sydney Harris, the new associate at supplier at for SDI, and with Barkov with iCode Innovation. So what we discussed about the strengths to build a coalition is first we need to be empathetic and we need to listen and understand others' thoughts that we invite to be a part of this, as well as extend that lending hand. And with this, you're not going to drown out anyone's voices, as everyone's voice needs to be heard. And as a leader, this is for a group, it's not just one person. So if you are a leader of this coalition, you need to work for the people and not for yourself. So at the end of the day, we're going to work towards one goal and a positive mindset.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alicia.
Welcome.
Others?
So hi, my name is Jada. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the manager of supply diversity at the NGLCC. So our group was similar to Alicia's. We talked about how communication is key, kind of to building that strong communication and understanding of someone else and where they're coming from, so that you can build that strong bond with that influencer, so that hopefully you are on the same page. Because I feel like if the influencer is not agreeing with you, then we figured you wouldn't be able to kind of make any difference. So you'd have to either become an influencer yourself or figure out a new path. So communication and understanding is key. That's what we discussed. And
beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
One more before we wrap up here.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. My pronouns are she, her, and we spoke along the same lines as, going back to the TRUST acronym and really understanding where your other coworkers, your other team members are coming from, and also understand that anyone can really be that influencer, and that you need to, some of us are more open, some of us are more reserved, and then continuing that understanding of others to help form that coalition and use your influence in a sense to help foster those other relationships.
Beautiful, thank you. Lauren, turn it back to you to wrap us up.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much. I always learn so much in your sessions, so I'm glad that I could be here for this one. And thank you to everyone who is on today. We appreciate you joining us, and we hope to see you at other NGLCC events in the future. We've got Sip and Pitch coming up in May. It's May 21st. I'll drop the link in here if you'd like to register for that as well. And we will have other events coming up as well. So keep an eye on our events page, and we hope to see you at our events in the future. So thanks again, Brian, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
And save the chat. Lauren added in there the link to Emmanuel Acho's YouTube videos.
Thank you.